Hello, YouTube. It's your boy Nathan coming to you to do another recap video. Today we are talking 90 Day to Single Life Season 5, Episode 4. They act the Breaking Girl Code. So we're just going to get on into this. We're going to get in and get on out of here. The first person I want to talk, we're going to start with my man Gino. Gino and his goofy self. What is wrong with Gino? Gino and Natalie. So remember last week, Gino and Natalie hung out, and he went to her apartment. He stayed the night. She had him sleep out on the couch and everything. He was slightly disappointed, and she went to bed. This episode, we find out that Gino breaks it and sneaks into Natalie's bed, and they sleep together and everything. They weren't intimate or nothing, but she let him come in and everything. They woke up and started laughing about how he did that and everything. Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that. Actually, no comment on that. No comment. He got guts, and it just depends if the girl liked it or not. So, and if she liked it, then there's nothing wrong with it. So she had no issue with it, so we can move on. So now Natalie has a potluck dinner that she's planning with her friends that evening, and she of course invites Gino, but she says that he has to bring something. Gino's goofy self he says that he used to be like some kind of cook, like when he was in college and everything. He used to be like an line cook or whatever. For a potluck dinner, Gina decides to make ham and cheese sandwiches. Now, on Between the Sheets, they didn't show it on the episode, but on Between the Sheets, they show bonus footage of him preparing the sandwiches. Gino is not washing his hands, has his hand all over the bread and spreading the bread all around and everything. Got cheese all over the place, really disturbing. They go to the potluck dinner and he's ready to serve everybody, but he actually has to cook the ham and cheese in a skillet for some reason. It made no sense whatsoever. Who brings ham and cheese sandwiches to a potluck dinner? And so he's doing that. The cheese is melting and the ham's melting. Everybody's just Gina, this one guy at the party was like, Gina, is there any condiments to this? Because this is just weird. It was just really disgusting. He, like I said, he didn't wash his hands. Natalie's just embarrassed, and she was just I don't really believe that you were a cook at college, basically. No, you clearly don't have no idea. So anyway, after that embarrassment, Gina meets with Natalie's friends, Melanie, and Melanie says that Natalie don't just bring anybody here, and Gina's me and Natalie been talking. Things went really south when we were in Michigan before and everything, and yeah. And then Melanie asks Gina, are you talking to other girls? And Gina was like, girls do DM me and I respond, but I'm not hanging out with them. I'm not a player or nothing or anything. And she was like, well, does Natalie know that? And she's like, well, maybe, maybe not. And so Melanie decides to go tell Natalie that Gina's been talking to other women on social media. Now, here's the thing. Natalie and Gina are not in a committed relationship. And Gina is allowed to talk to anybody because him and Natalie literally just reconnected and just said, hey, let's hang out and stuff. So there's no sense of really getting mad over that right now. Natalie keeps saying that Gina has to earn back her trust. I do agree with that, but at the same time, y'all both single. Now, if he was talking to other girls while still hanging out with Natalie, that's one thing. But prior to him meeting back up with Natalie and taking his shot with Natalie, he's allowed to talk to other girls. He's single. He's allowed to. So there's no reason to get mad. So Natalie asks them, Melanie, do you like Gino? Be honest. And she was like, no, no, he's hiding something. No, no, no. So, and that's basically where we're left off. But Gino, man, he keeps shooting himself in the foot, man. I'm glad he ain't talking about Jasmine, but still, Gino, come on, man. Them sandwiches, like, come on, man. Like, I will admit, Gina is not good with hygiene and stuff and whatever. Jasmine has alluded to that. That's one thing I will believe. Yeah, Gina's not good with hygiene and stuff. So he needs to shower more. He needs to wash himself a little bit more than what he does. So that's just my opinion with that. Anyway, that was Gina and Natalie. Next person I want to talk is Vanya. So Vanya is still on her date with that Tony guy. And they remember last week they had the amusement park date, and Vanya said that her and Tony had a kiss before, and he's just like taken aback from it. And last week, Tony said that he's just not ready for a committed relationship with Vanya and stuff. So they're still talking about it, basically, and it's just basically the same old conversation from last week. But one thing that I wanted to point out of this conversation was that Vanya asked this Tony guy that, what do you consider this? Like, we're here at an amusement park. Do you consider this a date or a hangout? And he basically said a hangout and everything. And both of them are in their 40s. Like, what 40s-year-old saying that you're on a date you're out on an amusement park and you're just calling this a hangout? And y'all shared a kiss, and they even kissed on their way out. I mean, the kiss on the way out wasn't like spectacular. It's just like a little goodbye kiss or whatever. But still, so I don't know. Vanya, I just feel like it's wasted her time. But Tony did make a good point. He said that Vanya does like to jump into things because I guess they've been friends for like a year or two or whatever. And Vanya likes to jump into things really quick, and she does. Well, I had mentioned that multiple times last week, how she likes to jump into things really quick. So yeah, she needs to chill. But I mean, that was basically it. It wasn't really nothing spectacular out of Vanya. I would like to see a little bit more with it, but yeah, I just feel like Vanya just keeps setting herself up for failure all the time, and she doesn't deserve that because she, like I said, she is a cool girl, but yeah, she needs to chill. So that was Vanya. Next person I want to talk is Kimberly. So Kimberly, now we all know the Kimberly storyline has been about the adoption with her kids and all that. She decided we're going to take a break from that story and get back to her dating life. So Kimberly goes out with her friends. They go to another little event and everything, and she meets this guy, this brother named Joe. And Joe seemed like a really cool guy. I guess he has a daughter, and Kimberly said that she has like a good looking son named Jamal and everything. And he works for some kind of modeling agency or whatever and everything. And Kimberly and this Joe guy, they hit it off. They hit it off really well and everything. Kimberly did tell her at her girlfriends that, that B guy that she likes to hook up with, she says he met her needs, but in terms of something long term, he ain't the person for her. So basically, she's just back on the hunt. They set her up with this Joe guy. And they had a nice conversation, and everything. She doesn't want to like overshare things like too soon and scare him away. And we'll talk about oversharing in a few with somebody else. But yeah, it seemed like he seemed like a really cool guy. I hope they have a good date when they go on their date in next week's episode. I mean, and that was just basically it. And Kimberly only had one scene. So yeah. So that was Kimberly. Now let's talk Pedro, Liz, Sophie, and all this drama. Let's start with Pedro. We got to see Pedro, and he's really taken aback with what Sophie's, the cold shoulder that Sophie's doing and stuff and everything. he decides to hit up his sister Nicole. Now we all remember Pedro's sister Nicole. She was a big mouth, and her and with Pedro and Chantel's relationship, she couldn't stand Chantel. We've seen it multiple times on the Family Chantel. She was involved with her mom's relationship with Scott. Remember her mom? Remember her mom Lydia and that Scott guy. Nicole was vocal on that, and so Nicole and Pedro decided to meet up because Pedro said he needs advice from his sister. And and Nicole, even though we don't really not a big fan of Nicole, she actually did make some valid points to Pedro. She said that, if you're in love with somebody and if a man's doing all this for you, you should be like like jumping head over heels for him and stuff like that. And she's like, Sophie just seems like she's very immature. She was asking him like, where's the girl? And he was saying that she keeps giving him the cold shoulder and stuff. And she's like, I don't want to see you get hurt again, like it happened with Chantel, basically. So, and I like I said, I actually agree because you remember I was very very vocal about this last week that Sophie is just too immature. She when Pedro was coming on really strong and everything, buying her that $2,000 necklace or whatever, she couldn't handle it. Now that he's backing away from her, now she's now all of a sudden she wants him and stuff and everything. So. So it just don't make no sense. And like I said last week, I can't keep doing these games with Sophie. So we'll talk about Sophie in a minute, but I want to move on to Liz. We got to see Liz go on another date with Vea, Pedro's friend. Last week they went surfing. This episode they decided to go kayaking. Vea bought her some shoes because she didn't know she needed shoes for this and stuff. And on between they went out kayaking. Liz had said this when she was dating Ed. She said that Ed was just like a princess. He just liked to do the fine dining, drink wine, and then go back to the house and do nothing. Liz never, and with Jason, the only thing they did was go out for wings on Wednesday night and then come back home. She said that it felt good having somebody to do something that she wanted to do, like some kind of kayaking thing and stuff. And Pedro said it best. Liz has gotten the most action so far on this show because Sophie and Pedro only had one date. Liz has been all around with this bad guy. They've been kissing and everything, flirting and all that good stuff. And one thing though with Liz though is that she wants to tell Vea that she is sick, about her ovarian cancer and stuff and everything. And now here's the thing, Liz. Okay, if you want to tell him, that's fine. But you said on episode 1 that this is just going to be a DR fling. And that after this trip that you're probably more than likely not going to see him again. So why do we have to she's worried that he may never want to be with her again and all that. Are y'all in a committed relationship already? Are y'all trying to be in a relationship already? I thought this was just a fling. Just saying. So, I mean, again, if you want to tell him that, that's fine. But don't make it sound like you're about to be in a committed relationship with him and he's about to leave you and all of a sudden you're scared and stuff. Now, I know, and I'm going to talk about this in a later video, maybe producers may have told her to possibly mention that or something. And I'm going to talk about, like I said, I'll talk about that too at the end of the video. But yeah, Liz, don't worry about it. Seriously, you said episode 1 that this is going to be a fling. Leave it at that. So that was Liz. Now we head over to Sophie. Sophie and Julia are at a bar, and Sophie's still been texting Pedro. He hasn't really been texting back now. So now she's irritated. So now she's at the bar, and there's this guy at the bar flirting, looking at Sophie and Julia. And Sophie was like eyeballing him, and then he comes over and introduces himself. His name is Gustavo, and he's a doctor and everything. So now Sophie's just like all blushing and everything. Ooh, a doctor. He can save lives and everything, blah, 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 and everything. and they're having a little conversation and everything, and then Liz shows up to the bar, and Sophie's still irritated with Liz about what Pedro said and everything. And so Liz comes, and Sophie's just like, "Dang, what a mood, way to kill the mood, basically." So Julia decides to pull Liz and Sophie together to get sit at the table and everything, and to get a drink and everything. Liz already noticed that Sophie is not real, was just like really distance with her when she got there and stuff. So they all decide to go over to a table and have a conversation. Liz asks Sophie like how's things going with Pedro, and she's like, he hasn't texted me, and he hasn't texted me because you said that he ain't ready and that there's another girl, this and that and everything. And Liz is like, no, I didn't. I was drunk and everything. And I just said that, you're healing, you're not careful. And Sophie didn't want to hear it. She was just like, everything I told you, you went back and told him. You're more worried about his feelings than my feelings and everything. And she's like, no, I'm not. And everything. And then Sophie just started screaming at Liz and stuff and everything. Liz was like, look, you ain't don't blame Lee for your relationship problems and everything. I'm not the one that causes, basically. And she's right. Like we said this ever since episode 1. Liz did not say any of that. She just said that Sophie is healing. She didn't say watch out for Sophie. Just just be cautious with her because she's still in healing. She's still not fully divorced yet and everything. But Sophie didn't want to hear, so she's screaming at Liz and everything, and we left off with the cliffhanger with that. Now, on Between the Sheets, Liz said that, what, like if she wanted to blame me like that, I could have, Pedro was actually just upstairs from where we were at. I could have been petty and gone up there and get Pedro and say, look who Sophie, she's flirting with another guy, but I didn't do that. Now, judging by the previews that next week, apparently Liz is going to send like Pedro a picture of Sophie and Gustavo, the doctor guy, and everything, just to piss them both off and everything. So, and you know what? I don't blame her. She gonna blame me like that. Then you know what? I was trying to be nice. I was trying to be nice, and I was trying not to be petty. But if you want to keep poking the bear, the bear's gonna wake, and he's gonna come out strong. Just saying. So that's where we left off last week. Now, I want to talk also Courtney and Colt. Now, they weren't on the original episode, but on Between the Sheets, there was a scene that wasn't shown. Normally, there are sometimes when a couple's not on the original episode, but when they do the More to Love later in the week, or in this case on Between the Sheets, they'll show like clips and stuff of bonus scenes. So Courtney and Colt, now remember last week, they're having their little intimate problems and everything. They decided to video chat with Tanya. Remember Tanya from Hunt for Love? She was one of the counselors and the coordinators during Hunt for Love. That one guy and that other woman were basically the ones in charge of the activities and stuff and what they did on Hunt for Love. And she's actually a relationship counselor. So they decided to call her for like a little couples counseling and stuff and everything. And one thing was brought up is that Courtney wants to really check have Colt's passwords and everything. And Tanya asked Colt, like, are you okay with that and everything? And Courtney said on Between the Sheets that every time she goes to the bathroom, she sees Colt reaching for his phone. Now we all know Colt's doing some shady stuff, and that's going to finally come to light next week. And Courtney's going to have a fit. So I can't wait to see that. So yeah, but yeah, they showed that on Between the Sheets of Courtney and Colt. She feels like if you have nothing to hide, then give me your passwords. How I feel about passwords is, if my partner wants to go through my phone, with permission, I'll do it. Go ahead. Ain't got nothing to hide. But at the same time, that's still your personal thing. And I also, my rule is that you can go through my phone, because I really have nothing to hide, but do not go through conversations when it comes to family. Now, Colt said on Between the Sheets that he does talk about Courtney to his mother and that's fine. You know, people do that all the time. I know, I'm sure, like, there's private conversations my girlfriend has with her family about me. I have private conversations with my family about my girlfriend. You know, but that's between us. When it comes to family, like, don't I don't do it. You know, we're not planning to do any harm or anything, but I will, you know, we can go through the phone with like other people and other things and stuff, but do not read conversations when it comes to family, because that is personal. That is your own family, and that needs to stay that way. Yes, when you're married, yes, they're your family too, but still, that's still your own family. So that's my opinion on that. So, but anyway, I digress. So that was Courtney and Cole in Between the Sheets. Now, before I sign off, I need to address something. Oh, you know, I don't normally do like say this often. Um, a lot of people, I see like a lot of comments and stuff and everything. People always say that 90 Day Fiance is scripted and everything, and like, you know, we a lot of the weird stuff that goes on 90 Days scripted, and it's just a bunch of BS and stuff. Maybe yeah, it is weird. On some of the things are weird, like that little Coming to America Lion King we saw last week with Lisa and Daniel and stuff and everything, and that was some weird stuff. However, I seen a video of Elizabeth and Andre, where Elizabeth talking about her filming experience and stuff and answering the question. And as you guys know, I also talked to Anna Lynn from B90 too. And and they both like answered the question like that everybody keeps asking: Is the show are y'all scripted? What is this? So according to Elizabeth on her Elizabeth's YouTube video, Elizabeth like shared her film experience and whatever and everything, and she said that basically that is nothing is scripted. It's not scripted. Now their filming is like they film like 12 hours every day. Basically, the camera crew has to get shots of like people coming in and out the door, like multiple takes on that and everything. And I know that from experience because I studied journalism and broadcasting, and in my camera classes we had to take shots of doing stuff like that. So that I believe. In terms of conversations, the conversations are real according to her, but you know, some of the harder conversations the producers do ask you to have again a few times to open like the tough conversations, even like at a public place and stuff and everything. You know, you may want to let go of the conversations, but the producers may want you to have that again and get their shots of it. So that was so, you know, the long story short is 90 Day is not scripted. She said, Elizabeth said there's no script to it. You know, is it produced? Yes. Filming is long days, long hours, camera shots and everything. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes of it. But everything else you see is real. Anna Lynn told me is right now her and Joe Vaughn's relationship is real, and everything. Their love is real. We can't. I'm sure other people's filming experiences are different, but the show is not scripted, people. It's not scripted. Yes, we see a lot of weird, questionable things, but it's not scripted. It is heavily produced. Producers do egg conversations more on than what you want, but that's basically it. Everything else is real. So now I know people are probably going to disagree with me and I believe that. I mean, I'm just going by what Elizabeth's video said. So yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to put people's mind at ease a little bit. I know it's probably not and stuff, because I do agree at times that, like I said, it gets weird, but it's not scripted, guys. So, but anyway, guys, that is it. That's the end of my review. I'll be back on next week to recap B90 again. I just found out today that, and I'm going to do this, Love on the Spectrum comes back on April 1st. So I will cover that one. That one is the official new content I will do. So be on the lookout for that in a few weeks. But until then, I'll see you guys next week for B90. Love you guys. Bye, y'all.